I'm Reeves Kurtner, and this is In Your Business. Season 1 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington, online at mosesmeansmore.com, and powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications. This week, we're joined by Rebecca Gray, new market director for the Wild Ramp. The Wild Ramp is an indoor, year-round 501c3 nonprofit farmers market based in Huntington, with a mission to grow and support a vibrant economy and community for local food products, and artisan goods. That is straight from their website and their mission statement. Rebecca comes to Huntington by way of Wyoming and shares all the ins and outs of the Wild Ramp, working and supporting local farmers and artisans, the impact the Wild Ramp has on the community, her goals, and more. Let's get in your business. Rebecca, thanks for coming by, and let's start with your background. You've been here since December, you said. Mm-hmm. West Virginia is not home. How did you end up here?
Yeah, I am from Wyoming.
Yeah.
So I think about 1,500 miles away.
Yes.
And right before I started this position, so I last year hiked the Appalachian Trail. So I was home for about a month, and I was actually all slated. I had gone through 4 interviews to work at Big Sky Resort in Montana.
Okay.
And so I was going to be getting like $60 an hour, working with like the 1%.
Yeah, great. Yes.
And I, it was just for the money, and at the same time that I was applying for these jobs, I was applying for farmers markets jobs, which has kind of become my obsession.
Okay.
I worked at a farmers market in college, and it really just changed my outlook on life.
Yeah.
Which, to think about a farmer's market, what? But it really it redefined community, infrastructure, our connection with agriculture, and just really brought me into the nonprofit world.
Cool.
And so I changed my major.
Yeah.
And while I was in college, people would ask me, they were like, oh, because my degree was human services and community development.
Okay.
And they would say, oh, what are you going to do with that? And I said, oh, I want to manage a farmer's market.
Okay.
And they would look at me like I was absolutely insane. Because it is kind of insane. But here we are.
All right, so let's. You did the Appalachian Trail in a year?
I did. So it took me about 6 months. So 6 months on the Appalachian Trail, or Appalachian. Sorry.
I know.
Depends on what part of the trail you're on.
You ain't from here, is ya? No.
She ain't from here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about average. They say 5 to 7 months.
Okay.
So I did that, and that also was just a complete transformation of self.
Yeah. Was that your first time on the East Coast and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd been to Florida and Washington, D.C. on just brief trips.
But first trip to Appalachia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And fell in love with it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So you're out in Wyoming, college in South Dakota that we were talking about. Did the Appalachian Trail, got obsessed with farmers markets. So how did you find out about Wild Ramp?
Google.
Okay.
I think I applied for, I would say 15 different.
Coast to coast?
Coast to coast.
Yeah.
In Seattle, Colorado, all over the place.
Yeah.
Found this position, applied for it, and I think it took about a month before I got a call, and I didn't even realize who was calling me.
Okay.
But I just I played into it. They were like, oh, so you're interested in the position? And I'm like, well, I've only been applying for farmers market positions, so.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was like, yes, I love farmers markets, and kind of talked a little bit about that, and then got an interview.
Okay.
And
did you fly in, zoom in? How'd you do?
I zoomed in.
Yeah.
We had talked about me flying in, but that's kind of the funny thing about where I live is I'm about 8 hours from the Denver airport would be the closest.
Yep.
And it just wasn't feasible to fly out of a regional airport. So I think they took a leap of faith. I took a leap of faith. We had a few Zoom interviews, and that's kind of the interesting thing about a director's position is that you were overseen by a board.
Right.
So I kind of have 6 bosses.
Yep.
So it's a mass interview.
Yes. Yeah.
But we all just clicked, and I think it just is meant to be.
What drew you here?
I love Appalachia.
Yeah.
It just felt right, and I can't totally explain. I felt like I was supposed to be here.
Okay.
It just did.
Yeah.
And that's the other crazy thing.
So did you take a job without coming here and checking it out, though?
Oh yeah. I hadn't. So The Appalachian Trail goes through 14 miles of West Virginia.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, just Harper's Ferry. That's it. And
so
that's
I
a different part of it. That is not...
Yeah.
That is not Huntington.
Yeah, so I saw Harper's Ferry, and that was it. And then I came out here, and I met the love of my life.
Yeah.
And I've only been here for, 3 months.
That's awesome.
The other crazy thing is that a girl who I had met on the trail, I didn't even know her real name.
Okay.
So I knew her as Slug. And she just also happens to be, she lives in Charleston and works for the West Virginia Department of Ag. And we just ran into each other. And like went line dancing. And like, I just really feels like the stars aligned for me to be here. Yeah. And it's my dream job.
It.
I know. It's so cool.
So let's talk about the wild ramp.
Right.
And tell us about, let's start from the top, the mission and the goals of the wild ramp.
Yeah. So I think, people who are familiar with the wild ramp, they just think of, this cute little storefront. And that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
We have 130-ish producers right now. And that means that it's 130 different individuals or farmers who have their hands directly in these products.
Yeah.
So, the honey that you're getting off of the shelves, that comes from Gabe Blatt, who lives 5 miles away, who comes in 3 times a week to check on his product, who built this shelf specifically to showcase, who is very involved in the Beekeepers Association, who is one of the most generous, kind men I've ever met in my whole life. And that's kind of across the board for all of the farmers. Everything that we have in the store is made with love.
Yeah.
and it just makes it so special.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the only opportunities that you have to really trust the products that you're getting.
Right.
Because en masse in our culture, kind of the consumerism and just the values have really gone towards more, cheaper, now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the farmer's market really brings you back to your roots. And you kind of like realize like what I'm putting into my body. And it is kind of that like moment like in your face, like, oh, somebody picked this with their own hands this morning.
Yeah.
So that I am able to eat it, so that I am able to nourish my body.
Yeah.
And the other really fascinating thing is like the farmers who butcher their own animals. It brings you back to that as well. Like Althea, she brings in a whole cow and you see all these cuts of meat and you see how they come together to be a living being.
Right.
And what an honor it is for us to be able to take pieces of that and use it to nourish ourselves.
Sure.
So, I mean, and I'm of course in like a weird headspace having just finished the Appalachian Trail. Like I think I'm just kind of in a weird spiritual woo whatever, but it makes you just feel grateful.
Yeah. I'm ashamed of it. This past summer was the first time I ever went to the farmer's market there. The actual farmer.
Yeah.
I've been to Wild Ramp several times, but I'm talking the farmer's market.
Right.
And I can make a million excuses as to why I'm not. I'm busy as can be, and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, hey, I'm going to do this, and I mean, I got like 10 jalapeno. I love jalapenos. I love cooking with jalapenos. I love doing all kinds of things with jalapenos, pickling them, and I got like 10 for like $2 or whatever it was, and I got some like peach jam there, which was the freaking bomb. I feel like I got like something else too, but and I went back again like 2 weeks later, but. It is a cool experience, especially like I said, if you're somebody who I've not adopted that as much as I should. Maybe next. It was late in the summer too when I went, so maybe I can get on that routine. But you're right, it is a cool experience knowing that like my peppers I think came from Gallipolis, Ohio, or Gallipolis Ferry, West Virginia, somewhere around there too. So.
Yeah.
How does the Wild Ramp, you mentioned like your board, just for those who don't know, including myself, how does the Wild Ramp work being a nonprofit?
Yeah, so we have tax-exempt status, and basically that means that we don't have to pay most of the taxes that general businesses do.
Okay.
And that just allows us to have more funds for our operations.
Yeah.
The way that we operate is a consignment model, and so the farmers get 80% back.
Okay.
So we take a very, very small bit off the top.
Everything in the store, 80-20 pretty much?
We do have some wholesalers.
Okay.
So those are just some of the things that we feel are very valuable to have in the store that they won't operate under the consignment model.
Any examples of that?
Jenny's Ice Cream.
Okay.
So they're kind of a staple. La Familia, we have
Okay.
their olive oil, and then JQ Dickinson, their salt.
Okay.
And those are just like really great products.
I got it.
That we want to have in the store.
And that's not as not as perishable, right? Is that kind of part of the olive oil can last for a long time? And
that
okay.
as well.
Yeah.
And we would love to have more wholesale, but unfortunately it costs more for us to be able to do that, so we have to very much limit that. But yeah, we also run off of grants.
Okay.
But that allows us to do a lot of great outreach as well. So right now we're working with a nonprofit out in Wayne called Stepping Stones. And so they're a program for young men transitioning out of foster care, and they teach them agriculture, construction skills, and they've actually built their own tiny houses that these young men live in, and they learn how to pay rent, and we're helping them with their agriculture program.
Right.
So they're learning how to package, market, and grow produce. They bring it into the store, sell it in the store, and then we're putting on a farm-to-table dinner in October.
Awesome.
With them.
Where is that going to be?
So we'll actually be having 2 farm-to-table dinners. Ours will be taking place. We actually haven't set the date because we're trying to make sure it doesn't fall on the Marshall homecoming game.
Got it.
So it'll be at the end of September, beginning of October.
Okay.
And then theirs is actually private, so it's not open to the public, but that will be at the beginning of October as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned you've only been here since December, but can you tell us about, like what inspired the creation of Wild Ramp? Do you know the backstory of it?
I do. Yeah. So the Wild Ramp.
How many years now, too?
So they started in 2012.
Okay.
I don't believe then they were an official organization, but it was just a small group of farmers who were like, I need and want to sell my goods, and kind of came together and said, like, let's work together. Let's make a farmers market. They started out at Heritage Station, all volunteer, no funding, and then slowly grew over time. So they started in this very, very small space, and then through a lot of hard work, they slowly developed, and then the city actually rents the building that we're in now on 14th Street West.
So the city owns that building?
The city owns the building,
cool.
Yes, but they rent it to us for $1 a year.
Great deal.
So
that's a good deal.
It is, I would say probably the best deal that you could get.
No, it's great. Yeah.
That you could get.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic for us.
So, and how long have you been at the current building?
Oh, man. I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, I don't either. I have no idea on time now, right?
I want to say 6 years, but I don't know where that number's coming from.
Yeah.
They are established.
Yes. So going from Heritage Station to the new location on the newer location on 14th Street, Central City, how has Wild Ramps, how else has it evolved since it was originally founded? They
introduced the Harvest Kitchen, which we have an in-house chef who is fantastic. He has a lot of experience working with country clubs. He actually worked for La Familia, and he's done like huge catering events. But what we do is we take food that's kind of hitting the end of its life, so produce and then other items in our store, and then we reclaim it and then turn it into other meals. And right now we mostly offer frozen meals and then like our harvest focaccia. So it's great for like single people. And then, we sell those in the store. They sell very well. They taste absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's an incredible. And then we also they do food for our events. We're looking into potentially doing catering. And then this summer we're doing Summer Saturdays, which will be almost like a block party just to kind of bolster our outdoor market. And they'll be serving different breakfast items too.
Yeah. So. And before, today we want to talk about, working with local vendors and all that kind of stuff. But before we get there, talk about, if you can't explain like how the farmers market that runs May through October, is that April?
Yeah, it's actually running June through October this year.
Okay.
They pushed it back a little bit. So it's actually interesting. The outdoor farmers market is technically not run by the Wild Ramp.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yes. So it's run by a separate organization called the Capital Market, the Central Market. Not the Capital. The Capital Market is in Charleston.
That's right. Yeah.
The Central Market. But they are a sublease under us.
Okay.
So we pretty much grant them the space.
Yes.
Or the city does because we don't own the building.
That's right.
But that's a group of farmers.
And you love it because it brings foot traffic into Wild Ramp on those
brings
Saturdays,
foot traffic
right? Or those weekends,
Right. And it's all about connecting people to local foods.
That's right.
And connecting people to the farmers.
Okay.
So,
I was always kind of confused how all that works. So
yeah,
thank you.
It is a bit confusing,
Yeah.
but that's our other thing too. Is it's like we are all about community partners.
Yeah.
So whoever we can support, anything that we can collaborate on, we're always more than happy to do what we can to help.
So you mentioned 133 vendors that you work with, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you all go about identifying and selecting those vendors? Do you seek them out? Do they seek you out? Is it a little bit of both? How does that process work?
Yeah, it's just a little bit of everything. Generally, we have needs that we need to fill. So this last year, our mushroom grower and our microgreen grower, it was the same person, and he retired. And we were like, oh no.
Okay.
So then they just came into the store, but Appalachia unveiled.
Okay.
They're a mushroom grower based out of Ohio. And so they started bringing it in. They've been doing fantastic. Every time they bring products in, it sells out in 24 hours
Wow.
or 48 hours.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, sure.
And then we also...
What kind of products do they bring in? Like what sells out like that?
The lion's mane mushroom
Okay.
is their hot commodity.
Yeah.
It's a personal favorite of mine. It's a very good... people who are vegetarian are very much into it. It's been described as kind of like a crab or lobster-like taste.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I don't know if I would say that. I just like to saute it in a little bit of butter, salt and pepper. It's
That's cool.
so good.
Okay.
And then Elevated Greens, who we just brought on this last week, but they have a huge operation, and I'm actually going out to visit it and learn a little bit more about it, so I don't want to speak incorrectly.
Yeah, sure.
But they use infrared lights
Okay.
and some really high-tech technology, and they have a pretty small space, but they utilize every square inch of it.
Right.
All the way up the walls,
Right.
rows and rows. They've been bringing in lots of lettuce, and then they'll be bringing in microgreens soon.
So again, going back on those two examples,
Yeah.
they on the mushrooms, you found them or they found you?
They found us. And then Elevated Greens, we found
But it
them.
was perfect timing.
It was perfect time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, going back to my weird woo-woo, whatever. Whenever I need something, it always works out.
I got it.
It always works out.
Yeah.
If,
Okay.
And if somebody needs something, we can help them.
Okay, and then now on the other one, on the other example.
Yes. So our new online manager, his name is Robert. He's absolutely fantastic, but he sought them out.
Okay.
And that
we need this, and let's see who's
and they were
out
like,
there.
oh, well, we also have an excess, and we would love to sell. And
Yeah.
now Robert and
are these farmers working with? Are they also working with the other wholesalers, the Krogers and whatever? I don't know how this works. I don't know where Kroger gets their stuff from. But are they working with those guys as well? And then they also work with a wild ramp and things like that?
It depends on the size of the operation.
Yeah, sure.
So usually if they have a large enough yield, they can kind of spread out and go to a bunch of different retailers. Furman Orchards, they're our main apple producer. They also do a lot of different produce, but they're one of our largest producers, and so they are in some of the other stores. And then Grits Tomatoes, they have a large hydroponic and greenhouse operation, so they are able to have a pretty extended season for their tomatoes, and they have a large yield as well, so they're someone else. Most of them, I would say, they lean more towards supplying to restaurants, just because it's smaller amounts needed rather than the larger grocery stores.
Yeah.
But I would say typically we kind of are a jumping off point for people because we are very accessible. We try to make it as easy as possible for farmers to get in.
Oh, and they have to like that 80-20 split too, right?
Right.
That's a better deal they're going to get from somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're able to offer them a very fair profit.
So how do you handle do you have to turn people away?
We do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So sometimes, we get applications that don't really align with our mission.
Yeah.
Because we really value locally produced food. And so, sometimes it'll be an amazing product, but, we're not necessarily looking for freeze-dried candy, things like that, because we want healthy, local, whole foods.
How big is local? How far are we talking here?
We have a 250-mile radius.
250, okay.
But
so how far is that? Like, give me,
that would go to Columbus. It would just touch Columbus, and then we have 70% of our producers are within 100 miles.
Got it.
So
yeah.
So
obviously one of the benefits for vendors and artisans to sell with and at the Wild Ramp is that 80-20 split. Like I said, I think that's got to be a good deal for them.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other benefits for them?
Well, we host quite a few events, and we're looking at doing more this summer, but we also utilize a lot of their products for our Harvest Kitchen.
Yeah.
So some of them are given to us because they're, hitting the end of their life. They're about to spoil. But we also purchase quite a bit from our farmers. And then it's also a huge networking opportunity, because even just the physical farmers market is a great place to meet people, to connect with people.
Right.
And we're more than willing. I get calls quite a bit of like, oh, we need this type of thing for this event. And then I say, oh, well, I can connect you with this person who has this type of thing. And,
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the, you mentioned like the mushrooms, but what are some other staple items at Wild Ramp, some of the more popular items?
Yeah. Our honey is very popular.
Where's that come from? You mentioned it, 5 miles a while.
The Blatts are our most local. And then we also have 2 others. So Leja Valley Produce, they mostly do greens, but they also have honey. And then we have Sugar Bottom Farms as well. So those are our biggest honey producers. Lisa's Jars of Love, she does a lot of canned goods and baked goods.
Yeah.
So her pepperoni rolls are kind of, I would say, a staple.
Had you heard of a pepperoni roll until you back in December when you came here?
Yeah, I had not.
Okay.
I had also never heard of a Wild Ramp.
Yeah, right, yeah. I don't even know if I know what a Wild Ramp really truly is.
Well, and it's been described to me as a mix between a wild onion and garlic.
Yeah.
It is. It just kind of sits somewhere in the middle, but it's very unique because it's foraged,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they grow wild, right?
Yeah, they grow wild.
That's it.
They're wild ramps. So.
What kind of questions, do you get from your newer customers? Like, what kind of information are they wanting to know? Like, what kind of questions do they ask when someone who's never really been before?
Yeah. Well, people just want to know about the product, and I do get people.
They like to know where it comes from.
They like to know where it comes from, certain things about it. So something that I like is that the farmers generally physically bring in their products. So if I meet a customer who has a question and I'm like, I don't know, I'm so sorry. But then, they'll come in the next day and I say, hey, so somebody asked me about this, and they'll give me the answer. Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of Sue, she does our teas. She comes in 3 times a week, and her teas are always incredibly fresh because she just picks it, brings it in, and it sells really well. But yeah, she's just a wealth of information.
She makes her own tea here.
Tea here.
Wow.
And she does salves, and she does tinctures, and she has a sleepy time melatonin drop that's very popular.
Yeah.
She's willing to answer all kinds of questions about just holistic
people are excited.
Health
they love telling their stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Saying that you've been here since December, 133 vendors. Have you met with all your vendors so far?
I am not.
Okay.
And that is
because you're acting like I know all these people. I'm like, I'm really impressed. You're like Sue and this, but
I know and they are just beyond important to me, and that's something that really pains me is that I haven't really been able to build a connection with a lot of the farmers. And something we had a producers meeting, and we had a huge turnout. I was shocked. I think we had 53 vendors come, and I was not expecting that much. And so that was an amazing opportunity to do kind of that initial meeting. But then I feel so awful because I ran into Leja Valley and I didn't recognize them. And I felt so bad because it's I want them to know how much I care and how much I do value them and value their products. And I think a lot of them have been kind of burned in the past. It's a tough, farming is a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work, and just putting in all of that energy and then having somebody mishandle your product or, misuse your funds or something. I just cannot fathom that. And so I just, I want to be able to instill that kind of trust. And I think the only way to do that is, with time.
That's right.
But we also just hired somebody for our agritourism position, which is a very interesting name. But basically, they deal with all functions of agriculture relating to tourism and how you can bring in more money.
Nice.
So I'm excited about
that.
Yeah. So part of that would just be the general farmers market. I mean, that's a really great way to get people connected.
Will travel for a farmers market.
For a farmers market, and I'm really excited because I think they're going to be able to act as kind of a liaison for the farmers. So I know like J.Q. Dickinson does tours. Our mead producer, so that's similar. It's like a mead wine, but they have like an Airbnb on their property. They do tours.
Nice, yeah.
Furman does tours, and it is this whole other avenue for income and to get people connected with your product and people familiar. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to explore that. Yeah, very cool.
I'm thinking of Dwight Schrute and Schrute Farms from The Office when you're talking about
exactly.
Airbnb.
Yeah, Airbnb.
Well, yes, love it. You've been, it sounds like you've been all over America. How does like this local farming, agriculture, artisan scene, whatever, how is it in Huntington versus all the other places you've been?
I think it's interesting because it is vibrant, but it's, and I think that's the thing too, is that it's just not comparable to other places because there's so many other factors that go into it.
Like what?
So I would say, think about like the Pike's Place market in Seattle. It is very artisanal, inaccessible, expensive. It's great and it's like amazing that, people have that avenue, but the average mother wouldn't be able to go out there and get groceries for her kids.
Yeah.
But something pretty fantastic that we're able to do is utilize the SNAP Stretch program. So we accept SNAP and WIC benefits.
Okay.
And we are also, through funding through the state of West Virginia, are able to match those funds.
Okay.
So say a mother comes in with her child and pays with SNAP benefits.
Okay.
We can, so say they spend...
It's $50 and
they spend $50 on product, we give her a voucher for $50.
Yeah.
Which is just life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
And it gets the kids so involved.
People know this. I mean,
I don't think that many people know it.
Yeah.
Because, we have excess funds from last year and we're giving out money.
Yeah.
Holy
moly, man. I mean, seriously, yeah.
Yeah, and there's extra funds. There's senior vouchers. So they're actually building a senior center right across. Well, they have built it. It's opening in June. But there's so much that we can do for the community that a lot of them people just don't know about.
See, I'm in the advertising world. That's my day job, and I'm like, somebody like from the state do a campaign on this. And let people know this.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing.
To eat healthy, to eat local.
Right. Well, I went
and you get 2 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No. Yeah. It was great.
I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah. I went and met with Senator Plimmel just because we were like, you have to provide the funds for this again. They were trying to cut them out this year, and he had no idea.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault.
No.
It's just, and the Food and Farms Coalition has really been gunning for that.
Yeah.
Cordell Bostic, he's the director, and he's fantastic,
That's
amazing.
awesome.
And he was really key in getting that funding this year. So
yeah, that's great.
Really great.
Any like success stories? You mentioned like networking, but like any like success stories that you can think about or that you've heard from some of the local producers that have benefited from being at the Wild Ramp?
Well, so Lisa, she is the owner of Lisa's Jars of Love, and I was just talking to her about our Stink Fest, which I should probably cover that a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so
let's come back to that.
Okay,
Go ahead. Talk about Lisa,
we'll come back.
Stink Fest. Yes, sorry.
But we were just talking about opportunities to sell directly to consumers, and she was like, "Yeah, I made $2,000." And it's like, yeah, like having that venue and that space to sell is life changing,
right? Yeah,
and us being able to kind of facilitate that. Because a lot, like marketing is a lot of work.
That's right.
And anything that we can do to kind of help our vendors. And then, when they're doing their own marketing, that helps us as well because it brings more people into the store. And she's one of our top selling producers and she's been doing very well.
Awesome.
So I think that's fantastic.
Talk about Stinkfest.
Stinkfest. So it is the annual ramp festival. So we get a lot of requests for sales of ramps, and that season is kind of at the end of April. So we're bringing in about 2,000 pounds of ramps.
Yeah.
We're going to be serving a all ramp themed lunch. We're going to be crowning a ramp king and queen.
Love it.
Which that's a new addition this year.
Okay.
That's new. That was my brainchild, and it's not totally fleshed out. So if it ends up being horrible, so and then we're having some live music.
Nice.
The Logan County Cloggers will be clogging. Okay. A lot of vendors, food trucks. We have Chipiggy slated to be there, and then we'll be adding some more. So it'll be a really good time.
Talk about that event. Like, how important is it? What is the purpose of that event, and what does it do for Wild Ramp?
Well, it's a large fundraising event.
Right,
for
that's
us.
what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so we have raffles. This year we have some Blanco glass that we're raffling, and then Sloan Gallery donated this beautiful basket with like a citrine ring, a couple of books about art, a really interesting statuette that they donated, a lot of great stuff there. And then we also accept donations and sponsors, so that's huge for us. And it kind of acts as like the jump off point of the summer, the harvest season, and then it's a huge, it's a cultural event.
That's right.
People
celebrating our heritage, right?
Celebrating our heritage,
yeah.
And the Wild Ramp is really ingrained in a lot of people's history out here. Just kind of hearing stories of people who were basically force-fed ramps as a kid, and now they hate them. Or like people who were so beyond excited for ramp season, and they remember going and hunting for ramps with their grandpa, and like making ramp food with their grandma. And it is like, food is culture.
Yeah, that's 100%. Right.
It's one of the best ways that we can reconnect with it. So
yeah. Let's talk about what are some of the challenges that Wild Ramp currently faces?
Yeah, well, I would just say, having me new to the area, brand new to the position, it's a bit of a learning curve, but I've just been beyond supported by everybody, by the board, the other community members, previous employees of the ramp, previous board members, have all kind of like reached out and helped. I would say funding is always an issue for any nonprofit, so that's kind of a constant battle of like, how are we gonna get more funds? How are we gonna cover this? How are we gonna? We're trying to change our roof. It leaks very severely, and so we have $15,000 and it's going to cost about $33,000. So that's kind of, it's all these things of like, how do we do that? But that's the other great thing is that we have this amazing team and group, and everybody who works there is so passionate about the mission. And whenever we're faced with a problem, it's not like, oh man, this sucks, this is horrible. It's how are we gonna do it?
That's
how are we gonna fix it? What do we got to do?
Can we make lemonade out of this? Right?
Can we make? Yeah. Do we put on a bake sale? Do we? What do we do? What do we do? And again, it all always kind of works out.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that your vendors are facing right now? Your farmers. And producers?
Well, that's the other thing too. It's always farming is so volatile. It's always a battle. And I, hear stories of honey producers who lose all of their hives because of disease.
Yeah.
Or, last year there was a very early frost, and so there were no peaches.
Wow.
And that's like the thing is like you think about that and you're like, oh, that sucks, no peaches. But that's someone's entire livelihood.
Absolutely.
And all of the time and money and effort that goes into doing that. And, I was talking to Irwin Farms. They had their high tunnel, and he was telling me the story of how he got it. He had to like drive like 7 hours and like rent a trailer and bring it out here and set it all up himself. And then there was a storm and it got damaged. And I'm just like, it's just so painful to hear because you know how hard they work and how much they care. And that's what I mean is like farming is hard.
That's right.
Like not only physically and time wise, but also like you have to be a determined and very gritty person to be.
Same thing. I mean, if you're shopping at Walmart or Kroger or Wild Ramp, I don't think people. I take it back. If you're shopping at Kroger and Walmart, people really don't care about. They don't think about where their food comes from. They don't think about the guy earning whatever he's earning and all that goes into it. Wild Ramp, people might be more conscious of that. Yeah. But you don't think about a frost and that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's the thing too is it's like I don't ever want people to feel shamed or like unwelcome because they don't know much about local foods or they do eat at Walmart. It's like my whole life I grew up eating processed stuff. I didn't really eat many vegetables. I actually kind of went on a health journey and I lost like 45 pounds and kind of like turned that around. But it's like I still go to McDonald's. I still like it's like it doesn't make you a good or bad person.
That's right.
It just allows you to kind of take a minute and step back and say like, oh, is this bad for my body? Is this like what can I do to like be happier, healthier, a little bit better? And we just want to act as a place where people can do that. In any way, shape, or form. If you come in and you don't know what chard is, I didn't know what that was. We can tell you about it. And
what is it? What do you mean?
So chard is a type of lettuce.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, it's kind of hard to describe. I'd say the consistency is almost a little bit like celery. Like it has kind of a thick stalk. But yeah, there's lots of different ways to prepare it, and we can provide recipes.
Right. Nice.
And that's something we're really trying to do with our Harvest Kitchen is reach out more and do cooking demonstrations and say like, oh, I've never seen a pawpaw, which is another regional
pawpaw
food.
bush, yes.
Yeah, which
Hatfield McCoy history.
Oh, I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah.
But that sounds.
I'll get details wrong, but there was one of the most brutal moments in the history of like Hatfield McCoy's. Like I want to say 3 boys were tied up to the pawpaw bush. 3 McCoy boys, I think. Okay. Tied up, and then they were executed on a pawpaw bush. Oh. So. Anyway, great story.
Yeah, very super wholesome.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
That is very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, that's
when you say pawpaw bush, that's what I think.
That's what you think of. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's great too. I mean, you have a connection there. Yeah. That's something to think of. But I didn't know what a pawpaw was. I'd never had it. I think it tastes kind of like a mango banana custard. I think it's delicious. But that's the exciting thing is that it's like we're all learning. And
you all should do like a Pinterest page of like recipes and cooking stuff like, hey, we have this, and did you know you can make this with it, all these recipes and that kind of stuff, you know? Again, going back to like these challenges of like local producers and farmers, what can you all do, or what do you all do to help them out?
Yeah, well, we recently we're trying to connect them with more grants for their marketing, for their capacity building. So we're trying to help with, like Irwin Farms. They need a new high tunnel, things like that. And then, I mean, I think just kind of general needs, like we're there, like if
that's huge though. And the grants,
help,
like to let them know, grants can be so overwhelming, right? How to apply for it, even though that it's there, and to be able to say like, hey, did you know that there's this $10,000 grant, $50,000, whatever it might be,
right?
Huge,
right? Well, and there's another amazing community partner, Coalfield Development. They have a program called Refresh Appalachia, and that's all agriculture and those kinds of things. So that's another thing. Like we love to get them connected with them. And just because there are so many other people out there that can help.
Does Refresh Appalachia, are they serving products at your?
They bring in
that West Edge factory.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
So cool.
I toured it and I saw the Refresh Appalachia.
Yeah. We have their lettuce in store right now.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah. What kind of impact do you think Wild Ramp has on the local economy, on our region?
Yeah, I think, so...
It's a tough question, I know.
It is a tough question. Well, but even just like the SNAP stretch benefits for the state of West Virginia, it brought back $6 million.
Yeah.
And
through the Wild Ramp?
Not the Wild Ramp.
Okay, sorry.
Unfortunately. That would be pretty cool. That would be great. No, the entire state.
I got it.
But... Yeah, I mean, I think we bring a lot of value to the west end of Huntington. And, that's an area of town that's been really struggling, and we kind of act as like a jumping off point. And I think that like other businesses felt more welcome down there because of the Wild Ramp. And then I think that we're really sort of digging in and kind of like revitalizing that end of town.
It's a great area.
It's great.
Like I said, a Saturday morning, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Go to the farmer's market, go to Wild Ramp. Hit the bookstore, Cicada, get lunch at Central City Cafe.
Yes. Go to Sloan Gallery, go to all of the antique stores.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. It is a nice little Saturday afternoon to me, get a cup of coffee and all that kind of stuff. You're right. It is. It is the mainstay, I think, of Central City.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I definitely agree.
So you're new. The new person always comes in and wants to change everything and make it great. What new initiatives do you see coming? Some of them you kind of mentioned a little bit, but what new initiatives, what kind of new things do you want to see at Wild Ramp?
Well, my big thing, I really just want to bolster the outdoor market. I worked for Columbia Farmers Market in Columbia, Missouri, and it's kind of like the farmers market. Like they won like #1 in the nation. And the director, her name's Corinna, and I am obsessed with her, and she's my idol, and I would love to be her, and she's a big part of why I really got into farmers markets. But it was 80 plus vendors all set up outside every Saturday. And it was like the event. They would have, upwards of 5,000 people come out, and you had to get there early because people would sell out. And And that's what I want. I want our farmers to know that what they bring is going to sell. Yeah. And I want people to have a space to come. And I think that's the other thing too, is that it's not just like a store. It is a community hub. It is a networking space. It is just this connection with community that we have grown so far away from. And it almost fulfills kind of the need that churches fulfill for a lot of people. Yeah. It's this space where you meet people, you connect, and it just acts as just such a beacon of hope and light.
How big do you think that farmers market could be?
I think it could be huge. I often force people to come stand in the parking lot with me, and I'm like, look, we have the covered awning, and we can fit about 28, and I'm like, but we have this whole parking lot out here.
Pop-up tents.
We could double it. The Central City Renewal has actually granted us the ability to use the gazebo space, including their electricity, and so I'm like, let's bring vendors over there. Let's get people at the front. Let's open up the Harvest Kitchen door.
Is there enough to do that? Are there enough farmers and artisans and vendors and so forth to do that? And do you think there's enough people that will support it?
There are.
Yeah.
It's going to take time.
Yeah, sure.
It is going to take time. And this year we're kind of starting out slowly. We're doing every other Saturday. But next year I'm like full force. Let's go.
Yeah.
But we went to the Winter Blues Market in Charleston this last weekend as a vendor. So that was at the Coliseum, but it's just an opportunity for farmers, artisans, vendors to set up, and it is huge.
Okay.
They had people
so they're here,
yeah, they had people standing outside waiting to get, it was like Black Friday, and I'm like, and that's what it could be.
Yeah.
It's very, very possible.
That's cool.
It is beyond possible.
Yeah.
And I it's really it's just a few more things need to fall into place, and I think that is going to be the place to be in Huntington on Saturdays. So
anything inside the store that you want to see more of, or any other additions there?
Oh man, I'm always looking for something really unique.
Yeah, right.
And special. Our downtime, just produce wise, is this season right now.
That's right.
So we do struggle to fill the shelves with produce. So we are looking for more producers who have greenhouses, high tunnels, who are able to do that. But we're always just looking for a variety of everything. We have everything from plant starters, house plants, bulbs to grow food, seeds, baked goods, granola. Oh, well, Kim, she actually just retired. She was our number one granola gal.
Okay.
So we are looking for a granola person.
Okay.
But we could always use more dairy, more eggs, more... we're actually doing harvest boxes, so those will be subscription boxes that are going out.
Nice.
And so we're expecting to really be kind of pushing the limits of the produce that we're pumping out.
Yeah.
And
you
then
will have online shopping?
We do, yes. Yeah. So it's kind of in the works right now, but we've been really hitting it pretty hard. So it should be up and running at full capacity very soon, but you can order online and we'll fill your order for you, and you can come pick it up at the store. And you can also sign up for our events and pay on our website. We have a cooking class coming up March 16th. It's the Maple Days cooking class, and you also get a little beautiful glass decorative maple leaf filled with local maple syrup, and it's only $15.
Perfect.
So that's all great. And we'll be putting our harvest boxes, and then we're going to be having meat boxes at the end of the year, and those will all be available to order online.
Yeah.
So
So obviously, if somebody wants to get involved and support the Wild Ramp, they can go, they can shop there.
Yeah.
Any other ways that people can support? You said you're always trying to fundraise. You're always trying to raise funds.
Right.
How can people get involved?
Yeah, well, feel free to donate.
Yes.
We have the Q Give is on our website. It's very easy. You can just put your credit card number in there. We'll give you a tax deduction letter. So
What's the website?
The website is wildramp.org. Yes. We also accept volunteers. So we have 3 volunteers who work in store right now, and most of them have been there at least 6 years. Okay. So they are very dedicated.
They just work. They
work. They stock the shelves.
Cool.
They talk to people. They're just part of our community.
Yeah.
And we also
passionate about
very
what
passionate.
Your mission is.
Yeah. So, and some other things we have going on. We're trying to do some revitalization of just, the space around the ramp. We need to do some power washing. We have some signs we need to hang up. We need to sand and paint the benches. We need to redo our garden box, do some landscaping, things like that. So if that's something you're interested in volunteering, we would love to have you. And then also also if you want to volunteer at some of our events, like handing out samples, like crowd control, helping us with like the trash, like all of the things that just need to be done during those big events.
Yeah, sure.
So.
And that's our episode. Thanks for listening. And thanks to Rebecca for joining us. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, and even leave us a 5-star review. Season 1 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Automotive Huntington, MosesMeansMore.com, and powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications.